So welcome to my presentation today on how to effectively use a social to build online communities. In the course of this talk, I'll be walking through how we built a community essentially from 0 to over 4,000 followers on Instagram, and walk you through our strategy on how we actually managed to do that. Before starting, a quick introduction to myself. I'm Mills, and I'm the founder and CEO of Tap In. We're essentially a media company that's on a mission to prepare 100 million young people for the world of work. We are also experts at building online social communities, and we've built a ton of them, in different fields and different areas. We also do some work with some of the world's largest employers, supporting them with attraction and engagement campaigns designed at attracting various different types of talent to the organization. That could be Gen Zs, that could be millennials, but we specialize in the social media aspect of running social campaigns, which are designed to attract talent to different organizations. And we are very proud to work with the likes of EY, Newton Europe, the Royal Air Force, of course, and Capgemini, to name a few. So I'll kick things off by beginning just to break down community. Before we go into this whole presentation around community and the importance of community, I thought it would be really important for us to understand what community is and what community ultimately isn't. To us, community is very much about building a relationship. How can you build an authentic relationship with your audience? If you are a graduate recruiter, if you're an employer of any kind, how can you be building authentic community based on relationships? So your relationship with a candidate or your relationship with somebody that's in a community. And the other underlying principle around a community is that value exchange, the importance of understanding what value exchange is. Are you providing something unique to your audience? Are you taking something that you're very good at or something that you can provide value on and passing that on to somebody or your whole community? But when is it not? A lot of times we hear community being defined as it's a talent pool, right? We've built an audience on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and so many recruiters or employers refer to that as a talent pool. And that's not what the term community is actually meant to actually define. And the other term is a job posting platform. A lot of people tend to build somewhat a community, but then essentially use it for job posting. So every day they'll be inundating that community with job posts. Hey, we're recruiting for this role and that role and that role. And it just becomes a cycle of continuous job posts just being shared on a platform. So I think it was important for us to understand the underlying requisite of what community actually is before I move on to the rest of the talk. So during COVID-19, I'm sure all of us have now been locked down for, I think it's 200, it feels like 200 weeks now. But what are the opportunities that have come up as COVID has progressed? We've defined 3 very key opportunities that have come up for employers and for brands alike. So the opportunities that we've actually defined with COVID-19 is there are now more eyeballs on social media than ever before, right? There's been an increase, I think, of about 40% traffic to social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and kind of LinkedIn. And the fact that there are now more eyeballs on these social channels means you as an employer have an opportunity to really target and reach, and in fact, build these well-sustained social communities. And there's more time is now being spent by candidates researching firms. So candidates are spending, upwards of 3-4 hours of researching firms, which means they're going to your Instagram profile, they're going to your Facebook, they're going to your Twitter, they're going to your YouTube, they're watching videos longer than 1 minute, they're seeing what kind of content you're posting on your stories, what kind of content you're posting on your Instagram feed, on your highlights, they're going to LinkedIn to see how often you actually post. So more time is now actually being spent by candidates researching companies. And the third opportunity that we found was there is actually such an opportunity now for you as an employer to build and increase your brand affinity. Brand affinity refers to how susceptible is your audience to actually being able to recognize your brand, number one, but number two, how much time do they actually spend with your brand? Are they spending 10 seconds? Are they seeing your brand on an ad, having a look at the ad and then moving on? Or are they actually searching you up? Are they going to your profile? Are they engaging with your content? Are they learning more about your people? Are they learning more about your culture? That's brand affinity. And that's the third core and uttermost opportunity that we've actually realized during COVID-19 that a lot of employers and brands have to really explore and look forward to. So I'm going to give you guys a case study of community growth and how we built one of the largest legal communities in the space of 4 weeks. So some quick background. We thought to ourselves, it's COVID-19. The opportunity to build community now is better than ever. So we thought, why don't we build a niche legal community where we provide law students with careers advice, right? We provide law students with lots of resources and lots of value. And we thought, you know what? Let's produce a piece of content and build a page from the 1st of June and just see how that grows. Before that, we spent a month preparing the content, figuring out the strategy, and then we launched on the 1st of June. And this is the page. So if you're on your phone or if you're on Instagram right now, quickly search up Get Into Law. Get Into Law. Type in Get Into Law, and you will see the page. The page will pop up. And so what we did was that on the 1st of June, we incepted this new page and we inundated it with lots and lots of valuable content around information that you need to actually get into law. And over the course of the last 4 weeks, I think the slide here says 3,500, but I believe as of this morning, we're now on 3,800. And by the end of today, because we're growing at about 150 to about 200 followers a day, we should have hit that 4,000 mark, which would then ensure that we have built a channel from 0 to 4,000 in literally 4 weeks. So some key kind of information and stats on the page. So roughly our page gets, I think, about 150 to 200 likes on average. I put some examples here of just some of our key slides, you know, some key pieces of content that perform very, very well. Bear in mind, this page was incepted on the 1st of June. We're getting 317 likes. We're getting 290 likes. We're getting, 32 comments, 2K reach. Each post is reaching, over 1.5K people across Instagram. So here's a breakdown of the kind of community that we've built. What are the statistics and what are the figures behind this community that we've built? So 3,000, I think now I mentioned 3,800 plus followers in the space of 4 weeks. An engagement rate of 15%, where the industry kind of average for pages very similar to us. And I think across Instagram is between 1% and 3%. 20 comments on average. So each post will get an average of about 20 comments. And 150 saves, which means 150 people are actually clicking on the content and they're saving it because they want to actually view it later, or they want to actually share that piece of content with somebody else. And a quick timeline just to kind of break down how we kind of grew. Week 1, again, a K, and so on and so on. And we're literally now on track. As the end of today approaches, we're on track to hitting that 4K marking 4K followers in 4 weeks. So how did we do it? How did we go from inception to building a page, a community on Instagram from 0 to 4,000 followers? One word: value. We created value. We created so much value for our community that it grew and grew and grew and grew. And we broke down that term value into these 3 key aspects. The first one being, value to us really means reciprocal exchange. How are you providing something to somebody which you yourself would actually have loved to get if you were in their position? So from a candidate's perspective, if you're an employer, what do candidates need from you? What are candidates looking for you as an employer to actually provide them with? So that's the concept of reciprocal exchange. The second one was unexpected giving, right? Give them something that they don't expect. Go above and beyond what you're usually providing them and give them something that they don't expect as a means of providing them with a next level in value. And the third one being nurturing relationships. When you build a community and when you're building a community, value is actually defined as your ability to nurture pre-existing and new relationships. As you're building a community, what you'll find is there'll be an influx of people, an influx of audiences that will be coming in, engaging, asking you cool questions. And the requisite around value is understanding how you can nurture these very key relationships. And I think a lot of us here want to know what kind of content should you really be producing, right? It's COVID-19, we're looking at running our campaigns for 2020, 2021, but what kind of content should I be producing as an employer? What kind of content do my audience actually want to see? And the answer is, it needs to be value-driven. The content that you need to be producing has got to be value-driven. The reason why you notice that a lot of career pages, a lot of career communities are stagnant. We've seen pages that were incepted, let's say 5 years ago, and the follower count is still under 500, or even 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and they're just about hitting 1,000 followers, and most of that audience is inactive. The reason that community and those communities remain where they are is because they're producing content which values themselves. They're producing content which they think that their audience will actually find valuable, where the contrary actually applies, which is if you provide value-driven content to your community, that's actually how you grow. And I'll walk through how and why that's the case in the next few slides. And just I think this is one of those slides where if you want to take a picture or if you want to screenshot this, please feel free, because we've actually put a couple of different ideas of things that you can create. You can produce content around video interviews. Right now, it's COVID-19, it's lockdown. Most interviews, most candidates are going to need to go through a video interview. So producing content to help them with that becomes very important. How can you create content around webinars? How to be effective around webinars? Producing valuable content that's going to help your candidates go through your process, but then also just be well-rounded during this very difficult time. So why produce this content? Why is it important for employers to be producing this content for their candidates? First, it adds value. One of the key requisites, and I think I've touched it briefly on in the previous slides, is one of the key requisites to community is adding value. The reason you're producing this content is that you want to be able to add value back into your community. The second one is it gives them a reason to engage with you. It really does give your audience an opportunity to really engage with you. If, for example, you produce a piece of content around how they should prepare for webinars, they might come back with questions. They might come back and say, hey, I love this, right? How do you do it? How does your firm do it? Do you have any extra tips? Do you have any extra resources? And that builds engagement. And other people that come and view your content will see that engagement and also will join the conversation. And then you begin to build a really engaged and driven community. But I think for me, one of the most important ones and the ones that I really see the most value from is that it's highly shareable. And I think that's one of the keys to being able to grow community. And that's, I think for us, that this point here, highly shareable content, is the reason why we actually managed to actually grow so quickly. Because the content we produced was highly shareable, what we found was people were just automatically sharing it with all their friends and their friends and their friends' friends and their friends' friends, and they would see that content and they would come back to our page and the community would actually grow. And I speak for myself, where if I'm on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or anything, and if I see a valuable piece of content, the first thing I do is I'll share it. So an example is yesterday, I think I saw a post around, it was somebody in my community they've created a platform which connects Black entrepreneurs with VCs. And the first thing I did was I liked it and I shared that onto my Instagram page because I wanted my community to actually benefit from that. And it's the same exact way. If you produce highly value-driven content, your community will share that, which gives you direct access to even wider communities across social media. And one of the obvious ones is around promoting your employer brand. Once you produce this highly valuable content, your employer brand actually begins to grow and more people have access to the resources and expertise and your brand in general. And a crucial and key one is around building credibility and trust. If your candidates or if your community can begin to actually trust you and you build a degree of credibility and trust, that is perhaps one of the most important things you could ever do. Because once you build community, there will come a point where you have the ask. There comes a point where you're saying, hey, we've given you so much value, we're now recruiting for this position. And by virtue of the fact that you've built so much credibility and trust, when you do get to that inflection point, what tends to happen is candidates are going to be more likely to actually engage with you because you've built trust. You've given and given and given and provided unique value to them, that when the time comes to actually exchange that value, they can trust you and they'll actually make that leap to work for you or make an application to your exact company. So, and the last one is it keeps them coming back. Right? If you provide value, if somebody's giving you value all the time, are you not going to be going to them all the time? Right? If a consultant is working with your company and they've really helped you to get 10x your revenues, you're certainly going to be using that consultant time and time again. And it works the same with community. The moment you provide value to candidates, the moment you provide them with something that is uniquely differentiated, they will continuously come back to you. So I know you're probably thinking it's fantastic news. You've grown a community, but what kind of client examples do you have? Have you done this for clients before? What kind of content should we be producing? I've got the answer. So before I actually go into it, one thing I must say is when we work with clients, we tend to opt for a very unique structure here. The community that I shared was authentic value. There was no employer brand element to it. With working with clients, what we tend to do is that we have the value element, which is we produce pieces of content that provide value for the audience, but then we also merge your employer brand. We merge the very best aspects of your employer brand and bring both of them together to produce content that is worthy for social, and then manage that whole entire piece. So I'm going to share with you a couple of examples that we have. These pieces of content here are just around valuable content that is designed for your community. So did some work with EY, TK Maxx, Howdens, and Newton Europe around producing these carousels. And now for those of you that don't know what carousels are, you might have seen them on Instagram, you might have seen them on LinkedIn, but they are literally posts where you can swipe through. You can swipe through and you can get lots and lots and lots and lots of different pieces of information all added onto one piece of social content. And the valuable thing about carousels is they give you the opportunity to go deep with your audience. So on that, let's take the EY example, your guide to virtual assessment center. So with that particular carousel, what that will do is it will start off with that, which is a title. Then as you're swiping through, you're being given lots and lots and lots of different tips on how you can begin to engage at virtual assessment centers. And the same for all the other pieces of content that we produce. And that's the shift. That's the social shift right now. That's how we're supporting a lot of our clients into moving into this new space of value-driven content, especially in times like this. So the next set of examples are going to be around employer branding. So how do you bring your employer brand to life? What kind of cool pieces of content can you be using to bring your employer brand to life? I'm going to play a couple of examples. The first one is an example by one of our clients, Newton, where we brought their podcast to life on social. So the cool thing about producing content like this is understanding that on your website, you've got content that will usually sit there and your audience might never actually reach your website. But how do you bring that content to life and bring it to social platforms? How do you bring it to Instagram? How do you bring it to Facebook? How do you bring it to life? And here is a prime example of how we did that for one of our clients at Newton Europe.
When we talk about weekends being absolute weekends, they 100% are. But there's always the option for Newton weekends away. So we have weekends that are organised, I think 4, 5, 6 times a year, where they're organised for a weekend away for all colleagues and partners to go and experience something new. So Tom mentioned the skiing. Imogen and I were on a yoga retreat 2 weeks ago that we all go on as colleagues and friends, which feels a bit strange, but it's really, really fun.
So that was an example for Newton Europe, how we very creatively use our in-house team to bring their podcast to life. And I absolutely love that piece of content. Like, really kudos to the team for that. And then another one was, I won't go through this one, it's a much longer one, but it's how we brought EY's application process to life using Instagram stories. So allowing, bringing the very best parts of their application process and bringing it and making it easy for their audience on Instagram to engage with. Because the majority of people won't actually find themselves at the EY website, or the social feed will act as the first point of inflection for those candidates. It's the first time they actually see the process. It's the first time they say, actually, do you know what? I can actually do this, because the application process isn't as difficult as I perhaps thought it would be. You might have an application process which is 2 steps long, or 3 stages long, or 4 stages long. There might be unique elements of that, and there is an opportunity to be able to bring those elements to life and showcase the different aspects of your process to an audience across social media. I really like this one. I'm going to play this one. It's one from Travis Perkins, where we broke down a couple of their different business functions. What we did was we understood that their audience, or their candidates, find it very difficult to understand all the different elements of work that they do, the different business functions. So we brought a few of them to life using clever animation, which also worked for social media. So we could post this on Instagram, on Twitter, and anywhere across social media. But here's a lovely example of that. So that was an example by Travis Perkins, and again, bringing one of their business functions to life on social, which is, if somebody sees this piece of content on Instagram, for example, they will be introduced to the business function without the need of them having to go across to the website, reading lots about the company. They can literally, whilst on social, whilst they're in their easy modes, can engage with such easy and digestible information and actually learn more about that particular employer. So Travis Perkins in this case. I won't go through Lane Clark and Peacock, but it's another example that we use to actually bring these brands to life. A statement for myself: now is actually the best time to build community. Why? I won't go through every single one of those points, because I do realize it is a lot of things, but please do take a screenshot of this if you like. Take a picture on your phone or a screenshot, and do save this, because there are tons of different points on there, and I'll pick up just one of them. The first one being Gen Z, millennials, and predominantly more people are spending a lot of time on their phones, up to 6 hours a day for Gen Zs. That's an opportunity. We have never seen statistics and data like that ever before, right? We've never seen that before. With clubs and bars and restaurants and workplaces and university and college all shut down, where are people spending their time? It's on social. And that's where the opportunity really lies. How can you as an employer take advantage of this new shift that's come as a result of COVID-19? How can you restructure your campaigns for this year to include that building of social communities? How can you make it more accessible? How can you build online communities that will support your sustained growth, not just this year, but for the years to come? And then last but not least, how do I build authentic community meals? Like, you've explained the whole shebang, you've given us examples of how you've done this for clients, but how do I begin building authentic community? The first one is, think to yourself, what does valuable content look for my audience? Every single person listening to this webinar right now, at this conference, has a completely unique audience. So beginning to understand, first of all, what do my audience find valuable? How can I give them that value? How can I take the ascertained value, which I know they want, and perhaps might not have, but how do I give them that value? That should be the first inflection point. And then moving along to building things like your strategy. Once you know that, you can then begin building things like your strategy, and then think about how often you're posting, and then engaging with your audience and leveraging cool features. And then the key thing here to note is building community is not short term. You building authentic community on social is not a short-term thing. We did it in 4 weeks. That is perhaps unheard of. We've never seen that happen in the industry before. So it's not something that we expect to be firm-wide or to be industry-wide. We very much understand that building community is a long-term journey. It is something that starts from inception, but very slowly builds across months and months. But the rewards of building authentic, value-driven community are far, far, far better for organizations in the long term. That was the end of the presentation. I will leave you guys with a piece of an ebook that we created, which is going to be super useful for anyone that's viewing this with this webinar right now. And it's called Recruiter's Guide to Attracting Generation Z on Social. The guide is written with a Gen Z spin to it, but it works for pretty much anyone looking to build authentic communities on social media. This guide will give you the know-how. It will take all of the concepts that I've touched on today to that next level and arm you with all the resources and expertise needed to actually build those relevant social communities. If you want to access it, take a picture of this, screenshot this, or go to bit.ly/tapingenz. That's capital T, capital I, capital G, and capital Z. Or simply just drop us an email at hello@wearetapin.com and we'll send you through that ebook. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you to the in-house recruitment company for inviting me to speak here today. I've had so much fun. I hope you guys have had so much fun.